Agriculture Minister Charlie McConalogue is due to meet coalition leaders today amid concerns over that proposed 30% reduction in agricultural emissions by 2030. Now, for more on this, we're joined by Gabija Gataveckaite, political correspondent with the Irish Independent. Gabija, good morning.
Good morning, Pat. How are you?
I'm very well. Now, tell me what the story is here, because we've reports of that group of Fine Gael TDs and senators who are warning over carbon finger pointing. What are they at?
Yes, so it's a group of Fine Gael TDs and senators, which includes John Paul Phelan, David Stanton, Charlie Flanagan, Paul Keogh, who are all former ministers, as well as Senators John Cummins and Garrett Ahern. They're criticising the false narrative around agriculture and the impact that it has on greenhouse gas emissions. They're saying that farmers in rural Ireland are being scapegoated over climate change. Now, of course, this all comes as tensions are building within the coalition. The government is expected to make a decision on that crucial target for the agriculture sector ahead of Wednesday's cabinet meeting. It's going to be the last cabinet meeting for several weeks as ministers go off and enjoy their summer a little bit. So I suppose there's a lot of pressure building within government. Now, Fianna Fáil TDs who I've spoken to, they're also very concerned about it. The chair of the Oireachtas Agriculture Committee, Jackie Cahill, said that even the 22% target is a major ask of farmers. He's saying that to be talking anywhere over above that is nonsensical. He's saying there's no roadmap how to get to the 22%, and that high target of 30%, which is what we're hearing, that's what Eamon Ryan is pushing for. He's saying that's totally unrealistic, and there's going to be resentment if farmers are asked to achieve what they can't achieve, basically. Longford TD Joe Flaherty, he's also saying that, he would be in favour of the 22% target and a mid-term review, as was floated in the Business Post yesterday. But the initial target, he's looking for that 22%. So I suppose the speculation at the moment is that, Minister McConalogue and Eamon Ryan are going to have to meet somewhere in the middle at maybe about 24-25%.
It could be argued that Eamon Ryan has achieved his objective, that the farmers are kind of resigned to a big reduction in emissions, at least 20%, possibly 22%, 24%, but they're resigned to kind of 20%, whereas before they might have said, get the greens out of my farmyard. We are producing good, clean food here. We're being treated unfairly by the emissions calculation regime because we're very different to the people who are producing the stuff in sheds and feeding them some sort of processed food. We're doing it with grass. We're doing it in a healthy way, and they feel aggrieved about that. But if they're kind of heading towards 22%, Eamon Ryan could probably consider himself having done a good day's work.
Yes, of course. So, the food that is largely produced by our farmers, a lot of it is also exported. It doesn't necessarily stay in Ireland. So, of course, the farmers have an argument to make that they are making, world-class food, which is, of course, our beef. We're very well known for, Irish butter. So, it's really a major export for us as well. But, of course, what happened last year was that the Climate Action Plan was published and each sector was given a range. So, for example, the agriculture sector got that 22 to 30% range. That's the cut that it would have to make in emissions. And the government kicked the can down the road and said, we're going to come back and we're going to come back with more specific targets. Now, of course, agriculture is the most, I suppose, it's the most important sector in the way that it produces the most carbon emissions. So that's why there's so much focus on it. But because the farmers have had all these months to get used to that idea of at least 22%, I suppose Green Party leader and Minister for Transport, Eamon Ryan, he feels a little bit like he can, push the boat out a little bit more. I think perhaps there is a understanding of the Greens that, 30% is a lot to ask for. But of course, farmers are also making the argument that even 22%, that would mean a huge change in how farmers work, and it would be a huge task for the agri-food sector as it is.
All right. Thank you very much for laying out the political landscape there. Thank you very much to Gabija Gataveckaite, who is political correspondent of the Irish Independent. Joining me now, Jim Mulhall, dairy farmer, chairman of the Kilkenny branch of the Irish Farmers Association. Jim, good morning.
Good morning, Pat. Thanks for having me on.
Now, let's talk about, is 22% acceptable?
Well, sure, Pat, as your previous caller has said there, the Climate Action Bill was signed into law last year. We were given the range of of 22 to 30%. 22%, I wouldn't use the word acceptable, but it's probably achievable. And we have given the commitment that we're willing to, I suppose, back the 22%. And there is a willingness there with farmers on my own behalf, I suppose, even to try and look at, we are going to have to make changes to the way we farm. And the 22% is probably as far as we can go, Pat.
Yeah. Now, the way all of this is calculated, I'm no expert on this at all, so I presume it's done on a headage basis, first of all, the number of livestock and what the average head of cattle will breathe out and belch out and whatever every year. The same for sheep, the same for goats, the same for anything that is farmed, that they do that. Then they look at inputs in terms of fertilizer, which has got carbon inputs. What else do they do? I mean, if you were to plant a set of trees, if you were to replant a hedgerow, do you get carbon credits for all of that?
No, you see, and I suppose this is the anomaly, and this is what has myself and other farmers scratching our heads in bewilderment, Pat. I mean, the 22% is there as a figure, but the minister and the minister's officials of the Joint Oireachtas Committee the other day have said that we can take on measures with anaerobic digestion, with putting in solar PV panels, with afforestation. But none of these actually, Pat, will actually contribute to anything north of 22%. So there's even confusion within the Department of Environment. It's pretty clear to me now. The minister has decided that he's going to push for the 30%. But the real issue here, Pat, is he has given us no pathway. He has given us no way that we can, as farmers, that we can achieve it, that we can take on measures on our farms to get from 22 to 30%.
Now, if you were to go to a farm in Kansas, and everyone will remember the Wizard of Oz and that windmill blowing in the wind, which is probably pumping water into a well. But today, a farmer can have a farmyard-sized windmill that will produce enough power to power the whole enterprise and perhaps even export. Why would you be doing that? Okay, you could save some money, but you'd have to have the capital investment there. But if you don't get credit for the carbon saved, why would you bother?
You see, and this is the point we're trying to make. There is no set of measures that we can take on beyond 22%. Your windmill in Kansas, or our solar PV panels. These are all stuff that farmers are willing to do. However, it still doesn't help us get from 22 to 30%. And the minister strikes me as a man that's full of ambition. I mean, there was 1 million cars. There was talks of 1 million electric vehicle cars on the road by 2030. I think everybody accepts that's never going to happen. It's the same with the 22, the same with the 30%. He shoves out stuff with ambition behind it, but no real science, no real pathway. I mean, it's a separate budget. What you've just mentioned that's the energy budget. We're talking here about the agricultural budget, Pat, and the energy budget. So if I take on measures on my farm, it won't be actually in terms of generating electricity. That won't get me beyond my 22%. It's a separate budget, and this is fundamentally where we see the problem.